Good afternoon, everyone. We'll just wait for 5 more minutes for more people to join in, and then we'll start with today's webinar. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Dun & Bradstreet India web. The topic of today's webinar is one-year outlook of the economy after COVID-19 and where we are headed. It is Dr. Arun Singh, Dun & Bradstreet India. Before we begin the session, I would like to tell you all about during the webinar. Participants will not have access to talk during the entire length of the webinar. Any disruption during the webinar. At the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A where you'll see a Q&A tab, your questions there. So I request you all to kindly note down the questions and ask the same during the Q&A session. Please note that you have to write your full name and organization name before asking the question. I will now hand over the control to Dr. Arun Singh.
Thank you, Kaustubh, for this. Welcome to second webinar COVID-19. No doubt that we are living in a troubled world at this point of time, and everyone wants to understand how we are as a company, as an individual, as a country is going to be impacted, and what. And that's basically we are going today. In my last conversation, we've touched base about global 19 is going to impact some of the sectors, how the sector is feeling disturbed, and what overall. Today, I'm going to talk about three specific questions which everyone is asking about at this point of, and that three specific question is basically these three things: how deep are the demand reduction at this point of time, which basically means what is the depth of the disruption at this point of time, how long could it last, basically length of the disruption, and the third very important part at this point of time is that how the shape of recovery will look like. Basically, that's precisely the point. Everyone is looking around, and accordingly, everyone will take a call to figure out how things look like and how things basically going to shape going forward. So let's move on the first, and create. I'll create a background before heading into the three specific questions at this point of time. The background is that this is the first time in the pandemic era where not just a financial disruption we are expecting, we are also expecting economic disruption. In the past, what we have seen, any of the economic uncertainty talk about, a pandemic uncertainty talk about, was restricted to the financial sudden shock, system strain. But at this time, what's happening is that we have economic, sudden stop and real economy freezes. Basically, that's how COVID-19 makes a unique and precariously dangerous, pandemic. How basically that translates in the economy? There are basically three important channels. It originated a few months back for every company, and then translating into the demand shock, which basically many people are losing jobs, and many people are, especially the laborer I'm talking about, and the third part, which basically created the uncertainty shock. We don't know how long it will take to shape up at this point of time, how long it will take to recover. That's basically creating basically creating a pain in overall overall mindset at this point of time. So there are basically 2 by 2 metrics we put together. One, the impacted area will be the capital, and the second is the liquidity crunch. The capital crunch in the financial market will create a basically cripples capital stock accumulation, which basically the funding to the capital requirement of the company will be troubled. And then liquidity crunch during the financial problem is basically you'll create a negative wealth effect, the problem. When we talk about the economic sudden stops, the real economic freezes, the liquidity basically is going to create a supply chain disruption and the reduced consumption. And the capital crunch during the economic sudden stops, you know, the investment ability of the companies, and will create what we call the second the economy, because the moment you stop investment right now, that will create a economic trouble in the future, maybe the days ahead. So there are 2x2 metrics which basically going to interact each other and create a pain for the economy going forward. The as I said, the problem was not just the financial crisis what we have seen in the past. This time we have seen the lockdown. More or less we are almost 2 months, we are second month into the lockdown, and the entire world is basically in some sort of either the lockdown or semi lockdown. That's the economic stoppage, that the economic sudden stop. That's a problem we have seen during this pandemic crisis, and create a major problem going forward. So when I talk about supply shock, that demand shock and then uncertainty shock, asked how that will change the consumer behavior. Basically, all of us, we have a two characteristics at this point of time. One, we are entrepreneur, we are working with the company, we are a running company, but at the same time, we are also a consumer of many products. So when I talk about the supply shock, that originated during the quarantine, social distancing, the labor supply shortage, there was a supply chain disruption, and then production cut. That was basically the supply shock we have seen. Now that translating into the demand shock, the informal workers the lose jobs, pay cuts happening. We have seen the migrant laborers problem, and that will lead to the curtailment of the consumption, and the firms will postpone the new investment. That's what you've seen in the previous slide. That's a basically demand shock for the economy. Third, very critical part at this point of time, and this is a very sensitive, because what we have seen during 2008-9 was not a financial crisis for that, was basically the crisis of the confidence, and that's what's basically creating a problem at this point of time. Again, the uncertainty over the abatement of the infection, fall in the demand, and the lack of liquidity is going to going to create a pain in the system, in the credit market, and that will trigger the default and then become bankruptcies going forward. That's one thing. What it mean for all of us? Now there will be new norm for the businesses, the new normal for the businesses. The creation of a new set of jobs will happen, and then most of the time there will be destruction of the traditional job. Loss of income will lead to the uncertainty, and there will be a temporary as well as a permanent shift in the some of the consumption pattern and consumer behavior. There will be a new choices will emerge for the most of the consumer, and the many avenues will be open for the customer going forward. So that's what basically we are expecting from this sort of pandemic, from the supply side, leading to the demand shock, and then uncertainty shocks, which will lead to the permanently or temporary change in the consumer behavior. Now let's discuss the first and very critical point of the depth of the disruption. How much is going to create a pain? If I have to take you back to the 1929 Great Depression, I mean, try to relate that what was the basically the pain which we have seen, almost almost a century back period during the Great Depression time. The Dow Jones Industrial Zone during that phase declined by 87%. During 1987 crisis, the same was declined by 36%. And during the most recent global financial crisis, 2008, it was declined by 54%. The recovery, of course, took a time, and then the period of decline, during 1929, it took just 6 months to decline. In 1987, just took 2 months to decline. 2008 global financial crisis took 17 months to decline from a top to the bottom. But coronavirus outbreak took economy, from a top to bottom in just 1.5 months. Just 1.5 months. Look at the speed at which the pandemic has resulted in acute market volatility, and now 1.5 is one of the fastest collapsed we have seen historically for any pandemic or any economic crisis. That's the severity of the debt. And we have a index. One, the World Pandemic Uncertainty Index, and second, our own optimism index. Our own optimism index, Dun and Bradstreet optimism index, we are tracking since 2002. And the index which we recorded for a Q2 2020 is all-time low. In fact, lower than what we have seen in 2008 financial crisis. So one can expect the optimism level of the companies basically deteriorated. So this optimism basically optimism of 500 many 500 companies across India for various sectors, for various segment, they feel, and they basically represent good economic output in the economy. They are not feeling good, which means that's down, all-time down. And on the right-hand side of the chart, if you see the pandemic uncertainty index, that uncertainty index, unfortunately, is something around highest today. It was not even during the Ebola outbreak. In fact, it's a 3 times higher uncertainty than what we have seen during SARS 2002, 2003 days. If you see during 2002 and 2003 in India, we had something around 42 to 45,000 infection, and then that was the pattern of the infection was similar to what we have seen the COVID-19, but the change the that time we never had any uncertainty problem, we never had a lockdown issues. Now, given the lockdown and given the uncertainty problem, I mean, we are looking at the pandemic uncertainty index that's all-time high, and in fact that's a 3 times higher than what we have seen during 2002, 2003. That's a worry sign, and that's basically the depth of the disruption what we have seen. Now, what it mean for the laborer, which basically workforce, and then other people what we are talking about, and that's everyone is talking about it, not just in India, in the globally, because the economic slowdown start with the labor force and end with the labor force basically. So labor force is the forefront of the economic uncertainty and economic prosperity. If you look at the left hand side of the axis, the vertical axis, basically that's what talking about the share of vulnerable employment in the total workforce. That's across world. And then horizontal axis, we talk about the containment index, the how enforced or how stringency index talks about how stricter the government have in terms of the containment plan. 100 is basically very strict, and the lockdown, that index is basically the 10 parameter in that, basically the school shut down, workplace shut down, public event gatherings shut down, stay at home type of environment enabled. And that's basically the horizontal axis. If you look at India, India is extremely right hand side, which means we have enforced the lockdown guidelines very strictly. In fact, there are very few countries on the par with India, which means India is one country where we have enforced the lockdown very strictly as compared to most of the world. There is a case for that, because we are the second populous country in the world. If we don't do right now, the destruction in terms of the infection will be so high that it will be very difficult for us to control, because we all know our healthcare system is not the robust to fight the pandemic at this point of time. So whether government have taken a call, appropriate, wrong or right, that's a secondary question. The primary question is that was needed for India to restrict the infection spread, and that's precisely the point. Now that will have economic toll, which means the number of countries that we talk about where the vulnerable employment is more than 50%. That's basically in India. India got 52% of our workforce are basically more than they're vulnerable. And if you globally, if you see, the 68% of the global workforce employed in the countries with workplace completely closed down, and 10.5% decline in the global working hours during Q2 2020 is equivalent to more than 300 million jobs, which means 300 million jobs worldwide is going to be impacted. And India, given the high share of our vulnerable employment, is going to be impacted more than anyone else. Two reasons: one, strict lockdown condition, and the second, uh, our share of vulnerable employment is high. Now, let me, talk about informal employment. That's basically you have what you call vulnerable environment, employment, as well as you have a casual employment. And that's we're talking about most of the countries, low-income countries, where basically India is part of that. 88% of the employment we have in the total, that's we call the informal employment as a percent of the total employment, and 68% of that is going to be significantly impacted in the low income countries, and India is no exception in that. India is part of that, which means 70% of the informal sector economy is going to be impacted because of the COVID-19, and that impact we all know their the livelihood and the income sensitivity, what we have seen in the past, and that's basically the problem for them. The right hand side of the slide, that's a chart, basically the income losses for the informal economy workers. 82%, more than 80% of their income is going to be lost. So you can understand they are living with the just 18% of the income what they used to earn pre-COVID impact era. So one can understand the depth of the impact on the labor. Now in India, that was a global scenario. Now in India, if you see sector-wise, the workers who got impacted, the 96% during in the retail and wholesale, and just 74% in 74% in agriculture sector, something around 57% in the mining sectors of the labor is going to be impacted. More in the other sectors, we're basically talking about the manufacturing, logistic, hospitality, in the retail sectors, because of the norms we have strictly put together, because it's a very crowded space. They cannot strictly follow the social distancing norm, and that's what basically going to create a problem for them. That's a pain for them, and that's impact one can see in terms of the labor, in terms of the loss to their income. That's the one concern. Now moving on, in terms of the global GDP loss, I said 9 trillion. I mean, that's we have covered, and that's there outside in the world. That's IMF have predicted that next 2 years, basically this year and the next year, the more than 3 times of India size, more than 3 times of India size is going to be completely wiped out from from a GDP perspective in the world. That's a basically impact. So from a world productivity perspective, the 3 times of India will be completely zero. That's basically $9 trillion of the global output will be completely eroded from the impact perspective, from the productivity perspective. Now, as a result of that, what's happening globally and what's happening locally, that more than 100 countries we have downgraded from a good rating from a low risk country to the high risk countries, more than 100 countries, and we are tracking something more slightly over than 130 countries globally. And these 130 countries, they are good countries in terms of the productivity and in terms of the reach, in terms of the trade. They are good countries in terms of the global map. And 100 of that basically we have downgraded. So that, that's the depth of the destruction. Now in India, we have a more than 6,000 company who got linkages with the global companies, either from some sister company and some other venture they are floating around, where basically these in the country where got impacted with the COVID-19, and significantly of that, let's say around 62% belongs to the services, and the business services is the 23%. So the services sector, who are basically got a linkages with the global company, is going to be a majorly impacted, and business services is going to lead the pack at this point of time. So that's a serious issue at this point of time, because more than 6,600 companies have linkages with the global counterpart, and this 6,600 companies, they contribute significantly to the India output, and they are really large and the big company from a productivity and uh, uh, from overall employment generation perspective. They are going to be severely impacted through COVID-19 impact. Now, some of the sectors for India, we have basically enhanced the number of sectors from the previous presentation. Now we have covered more sectors. So what we have done in terms of the impact on the India sectors, we have looked at the three considerations. One, whether the sector is going to recover some of the demand lost during the COVID-19. That's one thing. The second, some of the sector you have to basically forget the revenue they are going to lose, because there's never going to come back. And the third component of the sector is basically the sector who depend on themselves, as well as the sector depend on the others performance and the other sectors recovery. That three consideration we had, and we divided into two broad categories. One, the negative impact, and one is the positive impact. Not all the sectors going to be negatively impacted. There are a group of bunch of sectors who going to get a positive benefit. That's basically remote working applications, on the top media, telecommunication, online gaming, e-education. Some of the platform who is basically providing and supporting work from home environment, they are going to get a benefit. And there are sectors who are basically severely impacted, like the retail, wholesale, and entertainment and the tourism. There are sectors basically what we call a high impacted, let's say for example, construction, automobile, banking, MSMEs. And then there are sectors who are basically moderate impact, let's say food products, drugs and pharma, IT services, textile and metals. Why divided? Because even the sectors got a negative impact, the scale of the negative impact is not going to be uniform. Each and every sector is going to be impacted differently, and hence their recovery period will be different, which I'll talk about during the recovery phase. And now let's talk about the length of the disruption. Now there's basically the three scenario we have seen during the pandemic days. Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy have listed down the broad level of the three what do you call the recovery phase, and how long it is going to take up, how long it will take to recover. Phase is basically what we call the slow burn. That's a good piece, and that everybody should be happy about. The second thing is that that's basically the good piece when you talk about the first wave, which you have seen, and then gradually come down with some of the cases coming up. What's basically happened in the China, and that's basically coming down. And then the second piece, what we call about the peak and valleys, that's the bad piece. That's basically the waves comes now and come few quarter down the line, which means the virus is not gone. His virus is there. It just basically got some of the condition environment re-emerged and impacted the economy and the people. And third, the worst piece, which basically the first wave followed by the larger wave, and then again time it peak in the basically in the future period, which basically talk about the monsoon in India, talk about the winter in India. If that is the case, then that's called the worst phase. So this is basically the the various research listed on the three phases of the length, and the first one is always good about that, and the second to some extent manageable, but third is really bad, and we are hoping that we don't see the third and the second at all. Now let's look that slide from a data perspective. So what we have done in a few countries, and we recorded some of their basically green as well as the absolutely no cases or zero case reporting every day in terms of the infection, and then amber is basically very mild increase, and the red is basically panic stage for that country and up, in terms of the contribution for number of infection people. If you see what's happening at this point of time, that India was in the top. India had a green during the March 2020 initial March, and unfortunately, when we imposed lockdown period, we had very few cases, but that went on, and now we entered, we have entered into the phase of our infection period. If you see, most of the country have gone through that phases, and most of the countries going through at this point of time, and most country have recovered. For example, South Korea and China, they are exactly they are green zone, and they have recovered from the from a period of what you call the infection and stuff like that. And that took 2 months for them. If I have to take an average of the rate, which means there are some 2 weeks to 15 days. For India, it's just 1 week over, which means we can see more of the red in next 1 week or 10 days. After that, things normally should normalize in terms of the contribution to the infection rate. So that's basically the length for most of the country who recovered. It took 2 months of the pain. They've recovered now, but most of the went back to their normal stage, what it used to be pre COVID-19. This China migration index, if you see, most of the labor resumed by start of the March 2020 their operation. 2020 migration scale, that's the yellow line. If you see, and the 20 migration scale, that's a white line gap before March 2020. But now, if you see the March 2020 converge, which means most of the labor went back to their job, and the economic activity restored. It took almost 2 months, months, 2 months of the recovery period for most of the economy, which means even we can hope that to come out of this, it might take 2 more months of a pain from now onward, from a basically can say from a red perspective. Now, the moment the economy have restored, economy went back to their normal stages. We have example of South Korea, where we see the completely what they have done. So this is basically the April data. The retail and recreation activity is higher by percentage point from the baseline. The baseline is basically the pre-COVID era. So from a pre-COVID era, the retail and recreation activity is 6 percentage point higher, and the 29% percentage point higher grocery and pharmacy, and 58% higher in terms of the parks, in terms of the the plazas, the public gardens, and then beaches, the footfall stuff like that. The idea of this chart that deliberately taken the base as a pre-COVID era. So the South Korea, when they resumed operation in the April, the economic activity restored very fast, very quickly, because pandemic is not an economic shock to any of the economy. Pandemic at this point of time, especially the COVID-19, is an external shock, is not economic shock, which means there's a silver lining in terms of the recovery piece. The moment our economy is withdrawn from the lockdown guidelines, the recovery piece will be for South Korea's example of that. 6% in the retail, roughly around 30% in the grocery, and more than 150% in the parks. That's basically testimony to the fact that the recovery period for most of the economy will be much faster, and India can see the massive recovery in the short term as well as in the mid-term to long-term period. But unfortunately, we have to wait for recovery period to start, because 1 week back, Government of India shortlisted 733 districts placed in India into the three broad categories: red, amber, and the green. The red, basically, there's a massive case, and it's basically the containment zone. That's about 130 districts. and 284 districts, basically the orange districts. We have not seen any of the cases of infection in last 14 days, and economic activity partially restored. And the green zone, green districts, where basically no infection are reported in last 28 days, which means economic activity have restored to majorly. But the problem of, when I look at my database, so more than 10 million economic entities basically which contribute to the economy, is basically 61% of that economic entities are based out of or operating from that red zone, that 130 districts, which basically just 20% of the economic land size. That's 61% of the economic entity operating from the red zone, which means they are not working up to the full potential. Whereas 39% either they are part of green zone and the orange zone, which means as India, while recovery will be faster, we have to wait till economic activity is restored, because if 61% of the economic entities is based out of districts where no economic activity is allowed, one can understand the pain we are going to have. Now, the third important part is basically the shape of the recovery. That's what basically we are looking at. While we are going to recover, but what shape that recovery will take, that's a very critical part. Historically, after the pandemic struck, there are various shapes of the recovery we talked about. Many of the media houses basically talked about that recovery, and that's outside, outside and rampantly available. That's basically, U-shaped recovery, where pandemic and containment peaks quarter and recede after the second quarter, which basically most likely. The plausible is basically the V-shaped recovery. Basically, the assumption is the pandemic and containment peaks in the second quarter and recedes quickly. And unlikely is basically, it's very slow recovery. That's, what we're going to say, the hockey stick type. And it's a L-shape, basically. It's decline and stays there for some time. That's like the deterioration in the public health, and it takes its own time. And the fourth, which we cannot rule out, is basically the W-shaped recovery, which means now we ease the lockdown period, but then after some time, especially in the second quarter or third quarter, we get the second wave of COVID-19 or ineffective policies to prevent the, the bankruptcies, the extended job losses, and then other impact which we have, which we cannot rule out. Now, let's see what India will take a shape going forward. So what we have seen in the historical pandemic, when we talk about the 1958 H2N2 case, where more than 1 lakh US deaths reported, whether talk about 1918 Spanish flu, where more, roughly around 7 lakh US deaths were reported. All was what we have seen in the V-shaped recovery, because that's the pandemic driven. It was not economic shock. The moment pandemic control, economy goes back to the normal very quickly and very rapidly. That was basically we have seen in the past. Let's see what the reactions across the globe happening in terms of fighting the COVID-19. The first time, whether talk about 2008, 2009, and 2010, when we had a global financial crisis, and where we have evidence of the government of the fiscal response, government intervention. The first time, all the government will talk about the G7, whether talk about G20, they are pushing massively in terms of the money into the system to support the economy, and that's really the good sign. While India is low in terms of the sharing, but it's not bad, and we are expecting more number, in future. That will basically take us into three different scenarios. What is the possible scenario for economy in terms of the recovery? The one is a V-shaped recovery, where basically government withdraw the lockdown starting from Monday, which is next Monday, May 18th. And there's a moderate relaxation. Already we have seen supply chain, while disrupted but restored in a staggered way from mid-May onward, and government put some 1% GDP into the economy to revive that. And there are basically the graded support to the sector, stuff like that, where we are expecting recovery to be a V-shaped recovery. The second scenario was basically a slightly delayed, slightly curved shaped, what we call a U-shaped recovery. Basically, most of the state, which we are hoping could be reality, that it should look like a U-shaped recovery going forward. Basically, government, most of the states are extending beyond this Sunday and maybe the till end of May, which means the economic activity will not be restored most part of the economy, and that might delay your economic recovery. And then the third scenario is basically now it's withdrawn, but when it re-emerges, when the infection rate goes up in the Q3, that's basically after the monsoon or during the winter session, then again lockdown imposed and the economic activity goes down. Thus, we talk about the W-shaped recovery. How all these three scenario will look like, whether we talk about the V shape, whether we talk about the U shape, whether we talk about the W shape, that the impact will start from a 2% positive GDP growth rate during this year, 2021, 2020 to 2021, to the minus 2% growth rate. That's a three scenario. It's a 4% variation basically, which we are expecting something close to the anywhere between U shape and the V shape, which means not more than 1% of GDP positive growth we are expecting. Maybe it will be zero growth rate, what we can expect in this year time period, which means economic activity will remain same what it was previous year in terms of the increment. So it's absolutely there is no increment we are expecting. While there are three scenario, and all three scenario might shape a different structure for the economic perspective, but we are hoping somewhere between 1 to 0% growth rate during the current fiscal year. Now, most of you basically part of this webinar or the earlier webinar, what we have reacted is that less than 1 year, or anywhere between 6 months to 1 year, 72% of you basically expecting that revival will happen less than 1 year, maybe 6 months to 1 year period of time. But the expenditure, which basically most of you are to go ahead, will be basically capital expenditure, followed by the and marketing expenditure in the period of COVID-19. That's basically you all are expecting. And the sum of the recovery, which basically I was talking about, while the impact will be severe, high, and moderate, recovery will be different. Let's say, for example, the first sector to be recovered, within 6 months of time is retail, wholesale, oil and gas, IT services, food and product, and some of the sectors which will take us some time to recover, logistic matters, basically up to 1 year, and some of the sector will take more than 1 year, call about entertainment, jewelry, tourism, hospitality, MSME, for example, construction and real estate. These sectors will take more than 1 year to recover because of the social distancing norm, because of the lost revenue. Migrant labor will not restore the work in stream. Will take a lot of issues, and will it will take at least 1 year to recover. Now, while the sectors will be impacted, it's basically depend. There are many financial parameter. If your financial parameter in the sense that the positive cash flows and the lower debt, the delivery will be faster. For example, IT services, if you see, asset ratio just 9%, which is very good, which means these sectors will take a very quick turnaround time in terms of the recovery. So, two factor: one, how long your sector will take to recover. The second, how long you will take to recover. That's basically depends on your own financial. If you have really healthy positive outflow in terms of the cash flows, or in terms of the positive cash flows, that will certainly help you to recover much faster, than anyone else in your sector or in other sectors. That's basically the point. Now, when we talk about the global GDP, the globally we are expecting that the minus 3% reduction in the GDP, as against positive 3% expectation we had during February 2020. In just 2 months, from percent positive growth trajectory, we are expecting minus 3% growth trajectory, the 6 percentage point deterioration at the world level. But the positive thing is the emerging and the developing Asia, where India is part of that, we are expecting 1% GDP growth rate, which means the activity in this part of the world will be much faster and ahead of the most of the other countries in the world for us. Now, that sign from the trade perspective, you see that the deterioration we're talking about, even if you take a most optimistic scenario, you can see the green, the dark green dent you can see. Look at this is the indexed value from 100 is going down straight to the close to 80, and the most pessimistic in the sense it will go back to 75 level of 110. One can expect what deterioration will have. If you go back in 2008 2009 experience, and the blue dotted line, that was supposed to be the case before 2008 crisis, but the 2008 crisis have completely changed the gap. Today we should have been close to 140, but today we are 100. So that means there are 30 gap already created by 2008. Just imagine today pandemic will certainly create a more than equivalent, more than today's gap what we have seen from a 2000 crisis. That's basically the worst case on the global trade going to happen till 2020. So now that's taken care of, but what's happening at this point of time, uh, there are broadly 10 challenges. We all have to live with that. Well, recovery will be there, like 1 to 2% of GDP growth will happen in India. And most of you will be recovering faster than the other sectors, maybe up to 6 months time, 6 months or slightly more than 6 months, depending on the financial condition, which has shown. But the 10 challenges, we have to basically live with that. And we have to basically sail through your company and our, the sectors through these challenges. One, the rising deficit, debt, and the default. That's reality. Bankruptcy is going to be the new normal, at least for next 2 years. The aging old population in the advanced country, the risk of deflation, the mass unemployment, and then of course the risk of insolvency, then the currency issue, and then digital disruption. The digital disruption, what we have seen at this point of time, what considered to be a bad for most of us, is now is supporting most of us during this COVID-19, which means while it will create a problem for most of us, this opportunity for most of the company to sail through and adopt that. While it will put a pressure on the wages, but certainly that's good sign for the company, at least your operation will be on. The sixth point is the deglobalization. Now, most of the company will start looking at the local sourcing. From outsourcing, it will basically localization. So that will be a problem from the globalization perspective. Now, one, there could be the restriction, increase in the restriction in terms of the migration, in terms of the trade, and of course the blue collar workers placed outside country. There will be restriction. Then the geostrategic standoff. We have seen what's happening when the company will find out the new base, or they will design the policy and will have a realignment of their policy. There will be a standoff between most of the countries. There will be conflict between the countries, and there will be the environment disruption. Now, the 10 broad challenges we're talking about, basically in next 10 years, we have to live with that. Most of the challenges will create an opportunity for us. Basically, there will be more local production house, more international company will come and set up the base in India. And of course, the digital adoption will create a opportunity for most of us. But there are other challenges we have to live with that. So it's a both, it's a positive as well as a negative. We have to find out the way to come out of the negative and adopt the positive challenges. That's basically the way forward. Now, how we can basically weather into these storms and how we sail through during this storm period. I think I was talking about that this is not a new things, that the bankruptcy will be a very high. And this we have seen whether talk about the Great Depression, whether talk about the dot-com recession or the real recession. So 3 to 4 times higher bankruptcy we have seen during the recession period. Now, the moment COVID-19 ease or the lockdown withdrawn, we are going to see bankruptcy. While this data is from the US, but the similar trend will be followed in most of the economy, including India. What it mean for all of us? So what we have done, we have taken, most of the research houses taken the two group of companies. One group of companies have done nothing, and one group of companies have basically what they have done. They have cleaned their balance sheet, they have cut cost ahead of the curve, and they basically focused on their core business. That's one group of companies. Let's call it this A, and the other group of companies, let's call them a B. They did not do anything. The difference between both companies, the A who followed all these three norms, they basically generated a 25 percentage point higher EBITDA and 150 percentage point higher cumulative returns than the other category who did nothing. So basically, the idea at this point of time is basically clean your balance sheet quickly, cut the cost ahead of the curve, and the third, focus on the core. These three things will help you to sail through the the problem what we are facing, what we are facing at this point of time. That takes you into the last and the final version of this presentation is basically all the businesses and an operating model we had so far have failed, whether talk about the demand supply imbalances, we talk about the rigid interactive system, we talk about the constrained capital and venture capital, inflexible human resources and organizational processes. All the businesses and operating business models have been failed. The large supply chain delays we have seen, there's a shift in the consumption, there's a overwork going to happen, there's a lack of collaboration in the leadership, the widest spread infection will be, and then of course, inflexible healthcare technology. That's a failure, that's a failed business model. How the success look like, which means we have to go back and redesign our operating and business model to sail through into this time of the crisis. Basically, there's the outer layer, what we are focusing, the local production capability, the supply chain visibility end to end, the global knowledge and the know-how, the alternative supply sources, and the production flexibility and at a speed. The second inner layer talk about how we repurpose our manufacturing capacity at this point of time, how we digitize our supply chain, how we plan our strategic workforce and keep them engaged, and how quickly we provision our capital and the liquidity, and how fast we support our infrastructure management from a remote, and of course the digital platform based solution. These are basically the new norm, new normal in terms of the business and the operating model that all will help you to have a digital design, the production and the fulfillment. They basically all is applied to the manufacturing company, but that can be replicated across various sectors within the manufacturing. And that's the new business model look like. Now, that's a reality that we have seen what's happening. Let's say Singapore model, New Zealand model, Germany model, and then China model will become a model of reality, and that many people look around for this set of model. And the new environment, basically, what we are doing. Like say, there are many people, and there are today in the webinar, all are connected from a different location, but we are discussing the same impact. But what basically what we call the digital world, the work from the home, and then there are basically various sector intervention will happen, and there are permanent change will happen. Basically, that's a new work environment will happen, and most of the our processes will be completely revamped, completely changed, and the digital will play a major role. And the third part is the policy environment. As I said, the moment COVID-19 is curtailed and controlled, there will be various policy shift will happen at global level. Most of the company will shift the base, and India will be beneficiary in that all the journey. What we have seen historically, during the Black Death that have ended the feudalism and the serfdom in the Europe. World War II have increased the women participation rate. 9/11 terrorist attack reshaped the transportation and security policies. SARS 2003 basically reshaped the attitude towards the shopping. That was basically we have seen historically, and the shift in the consumer behavior and a shift in the new normal. What we spoke in during the first section of the today's presentation, basically how consumer behavior is changing and how that will change, how the new normal will look like. The probable, the probability and what will be the future transformation areas, basically what we call advanced technology for health and hygiene, UV towers. We have seen what government have constructed at this point of time. The secure application for the connecting workplace might emerge. Becoming from agile, from fragile, you have to look at your defense system in terms of the cyber defense system. And from a workplace perspective, workplace hygiene, example, hands-free door and other stuff. I'm saying there are many areas after COVID-19 is going to become a new normal, and there is the two things. The traditional model will be completely vanish. The new model will emerge, and new model will have a new set of product, and that will create a new set of opportunity for most of us in terms of the day-to-day activity or the future areas of the revenue generation. Now, that takes to the last piece where basically one can talk about how as a DNB can help during this period of crisis. That's basically the last slide of this this presentation. And there are many areas where basically DNB can help all of you during this COVID-19 challenges, and is an unprecedented challenge thrown to us, and we have to basically navigate this period of crisis. Of course, there are many areas of the intervention one can do, but these are the prominent one where basically what we are doing a complementary report of all your portfolio, what we call a portfolio health scan. There's a DNB onboard, which basically your compliance stuff will change for most of your customer and for most of your vendor. One can help during the corona COVID-19 impact. There are basically various research report for a specific sectors, for a specific segment, for a specific market. One can get engaged with DNB. The fourth and very critical important part, that's what for the global financial. Now, most of us have exposure to the global company, and the global company are operating from a country that either the lockdown, severe lockdown, or massive, massive lockdown or a partial lockdown. But the most of the company are impacted. Their financial impact will be, will be impacted. We all wants to know about that. DNB can help. So some of the product we have launched recently, and we are happy to help all of you. Some of the things is doing for long, and some of the things specially designed to help during the COVID-19 case. So these are the area broadly where we can get engaged. And with that, I will conclude my presentation today, and happy for any questions you have. Thank you for listening to me. Over to you, Kaustubh.
Thank you, Arun, for a great presentation. We started receiving questions. The first question that we have got is on the labor laws. What is your take on the suspension of labor laws by state?
See, I think each and every state, talked about, labor migration and the migration happening, and what's happening at this point of time. That in 2008-9 statistics, if you see, there's like say millions of the labor who basically migrate from a rural to go to the urban center where we have some activity, economic activity happening, and they are basically called a migrant laborer. For some the temporary labor, some of the permanent laborer, and they are basically as I said, they are the front barrier in terms of the impact, any impact impact in the economy that through the pandemic or through the they are the first people to take a hit. And if they are not available, your manufacturing activity and the other economic activity basically will be impacted. Now, many states have done that one, and for them, it's right. I mean, they just basically want to help them to some extent, from availability perspective. At the same time, they want to help them from a health perspective. And I think it's a long pending law in India. Unfortunately, we have not done significantly in that. This is the time. I think it's not about state taking some actions or some other stuff. This is the time. I think we should use this to ensure that we have a robust labor law. Both parties talk about manufacturing entity or the services entity as well as the labor at a beneficial end. Because unless we resolve the problem of the labor will persist. It's not just the migrant labor. It's basically is going to create a massive pain because something we basically we ignore, and that's basically created a pain for most of us. So I'm looking forward for that. Let's see how the states as well as the center are reforming that and implementing to benefit both segment.
Arun, the next question is, contrary to a lot of views in the market, you have a positive view on India's GDP as plus 1%. People would like to understand that where is that coming from, and what is the base of your assumption?
See, that's a good question, and in fact, that's right to ask because there's two things. One, even the IMF talk about, the World Bank, if you talk about, they said that entire world will collapse, but only two countries will do better and continue to contribute to the economic growth. That's India and China. So they mention India specifically because they are aware of the fundamental of the India. That's basically specifically coming for India. That's one thing. The second thing is that if I go back and take you to the December 2019 and January 2020, at DNB, we basically are engaged with MSME. For last 10 years, we talk to MSME and we find, we try to understand what issue and what problem they are facing at a cluster level. It's not about, it's not about urban center or rural center. It's about that cluster level. So basically, we have covered more than, we can say more than 50 cluster in last 10 years. And and thousands of company we spoke, and that's basically we have connected. We have generated the database which we have, and at the same time we have the knowledge base which we have created. If I compile both, and that compilation have given us what we call a business optimism index and the CFO optimism index. Basically, is the outcome of all the conversation which we have done with the company during December 2019 and January 2020. That exactly before COVID-19 impacted world and India specifically. For example, your CFO optimism index was something around 7-8 years high, and the business optimism index was multi-quarter high, which means the green shoots were visible, during December 2019, and we have already recovered to 2019 was not a good year from economic perspective as compared to 2018 and as compared to 2017. But towards end, I think we have recovered. And most of the company were looking forward for a green shoot signals, and that was visible clearly. It's not just one index. If you look at various index produced by the various agencies in the world, they found that economy was restored and economy was coming to the normal. That's basically the second point, that economy in India, economy recovered. And since the pandemic is not an economic cycle, it's an external shock, we are into the basically the negative zone at this point of time. The moment we control COVID-19, the rate of recovery will be much faster. Two reasons for the recovery. Again, one, we have seen the green shoot in December 2019, so we do not have any economic problem at this point of time. What government is required with the fiscal stimulus measures to help control the losses by some of the sectors and especially the migrant laborers. So the government have to basically ensure that the unemployment rate come down to the pre-COVID-19 era, and the rest, the economy will grow faster, because we have not entered in the economic slowdown phase. It's just the COVID-19 impact. That's precisely the point, that our expectation for economy recovery, it will be faster than anyone else in the world.
The next question is on the perceived role of WTO in the era of coming trade restriction. What do you perceive as the role of WTO?
So I think I just said that, uh, 2008, when the global financial crisis struck, we were growing at a rate. And just assume a scenario where 2008 financial crisis will never happen, and which means we should have been higher by 35 percentage point than the today. Which means if we are trading at a global level at 100, we should have been trading at something around 135. We lost than 35, and during that time WTO was there, and it's basically helping most of the economy to reestablish the what you call the competitive edge, and then in terms of the policy formulation. But we lost. Today we lost. Accumulative is a huge loss. Now pandemic is going to create a similar sort of impact, which means by 3 year down the line or 4 year down the line, we might end up output which could be 30 to 40% lower than what should have been, which means your importance of the WTO have gone up. That their job is to promote the trade, the promote the healthy trade. The problem will happen, which basically if you see, look at the US China trade war, and most of the country after the 2008 financial crisis and followed by the global European crisis, they were entered into protectionist policies. They're basically protecting their own market, and WTO is still there. I mean, that's basically we're not able to create. The problem what will happen, that the moment we entered into the risk era of basically any country showcase their vulnerability in terms of the global supply chain restriction, supply chain disruption, then the country have the right to take a call, and that will basically create a problem. While WTO will continue to focus and force in terms of having a healthy policy around trade, but the role of the pandemic cannot be ruled out, and then of course there will be a massive policy realignment will happen, and WTO and other body has to basically respect the country stuff. But I see that there are the some issue at the trade front will certainly happen at least for next 3 to 4 years.
The next question is on, the lot has been said about India emerging as a possible destination when business are moving out of China. But do you think that our archaic labor laws and pitiable logistic infrastructure will become a deterrent to that move?
No, certainly I think there's valid concern, and you're right that infrastructure is not good. I mean, 2 years back, I have done study with the government, and I have given them 61 policy recommendation, a simple recommendation from a factory gate to the port gate, what the 61 recommendation look like to basically help that your trade export import is basically the dwell time what we talk, and the time taken for export import is minimized and on par with most of the successful country in the world. That's one thing. But at the same time, I'll tell you, when we were doing the study, and when we realized that the speed at which the current government is working, that's basically the very good. And there's a massive changes I have seen with the talk about ease of doing business, or talk about other stuff. The many things government have to basically intervene and correct. And of course, the labor is one part, and this is the ideal time for government to intervene and have a world-class labor laws at this point of time. At the same time, taking care of the labor expectation and their income. But the most of the laws needs to be rectified. Why I'm saying, why I'm expecting that this government have a capability to and capacity to do that, because in just one day they had abolished more than 800 old laws were governed by 1952 Act. The one day they have abolished a few years back. So they have a capacity to do that. They have a mandate to do that. Now the idea is that they need to move very fast. It's not just about targeting ease of doing business index. Actually, the reality is that on ground that should reflect. Your infrastructure should show that you have a good infrastructure to support that. And I think government have last few years shown the tendency. Why I'm saying that 61 recommendation what we proposed, the government have taken it very seriously, and the 30 recommendation is at very stage of the development and very stage of implementation at this point of time. One can see the massive restructuring on the infrastructure front. The road infrastructure, we have seen the improvement in the past few years. That's one thing. That's basically the internal structure, and then reshaping and improving. But there's a lot needs to be done at this point of time, which we are hoping the government will intervene, correct it. That's one piece. External piece, uh, there's a the perception shift about the India that's happened, with the improvement in the most of the global indices. When I talk about the global giant, when global companies, there is a significantly shift in the perception in terms of India as compared to last few years. So that's a positive sign. Second, geographically, we are strategically located. I mean, we are not far from China in terms of the, if anyone want to produce here and want to take away from some, India to some other countries, geographically, we are not, away. It's like strategically placed. So that's a good sign from a international perspective. So I think the development is happening internally and more needs to be done. Externally, there is a good sign in terms of the perception and in terms of the geographical location. All will contribute and will help a company who wants to move from China and want to place a manufacturing unit in India. And that's basically government is cognizant of that, and that they are working towards supporting that environment, enabling environment to facilitate this.
Our next question is from the SME sector. So what measure you think SMEs should take at their level in addition to government support to minimize the loss due to COVID?
So I think, MSME talk about uh, specific things with the basically most of the times it's about the unorganized sectors operating, and most of the times it's basically your cost move ahead of your revenue. So that needs to be controlled. The cost mechanism has to be well controlled at this point of time, because why I'm saying, when things will be a normal, the MSME sector is going to face a massive liquidity problem. That's a basically working capital problem. The working capital problem can be resolved, and that can be resolved in with the help of the government. Basically, of course, the lending from the bank might not be a feasible option in the interim, because you change the bank laws, you promote the bank sector to support to the MSME. That will take its time. But what quickly can be done is the supply chain finance. The supply chain finance is basically all the party. You need to find an anchor company who basically finance your receivables, and you are paying a very marginal interest rate to the bank, because everyone will get a benefit. Because instead of getting paid from the large company in 90 days or 60 days, you're getting paid instantly. That will help to keep your working capital intact. So when the production resume, you are basically on top of the game. That's the basically one thing. The cost is another which I talk about. The third part, basically the labor, and of course the availability of labor once the COVID-19 resume will be critical. One has to start working on that right now, because once lost in terms of the labor will certainly create a pain for the productivity in next 2 to 3 months. So these are the certain elements one can quickly look around, while we are basically, I think, next week, and will intimate everyone that we are going to specifically cover the MSME segment in the webinar in few weeks down the line, where we'll talk about the more detailed the action item taken by MSME to to minimize the impact of MSMEs. There we'll talk about to minimize the impact of COVID. There we'll talk about more action point, but these are the immediate things which MSME should do to ensure that you stay ahead of the curve.
Due to paucity of time, we will be able to take only 2 more questions right now, but there are many more questions which we couldn't answer. We would request you to write to india@dnb.com for any questions or anything that you would like us to answer. And we would also be sending a recording of this webinar and the presentation to all the participants today. The last 2 questions, Arun, this is one for oil and gas sector. So people are optimistic, thinking that renewable energy will get a boom if they get enough support from corporates, individual and government. And what is the recovery rate for oil and gas industry?
So I think this, oil and gas is some part of essentially, and they put into the essential commodities. It was never shut down. It's operational, and the oil and gas industry, if you see historically, there was a troubled balance sheet, no doubt, but this government somehow they managed and then given a boost. The one silver lining and one great news, and in fact I should say, that the moderation in the crude oil prices globally, that's a significant moderation. So your imported costs come down. And in terms of the recovery period, I think it's a short-term period. I mean, you will not take even the 6-month time to recover and go back to the pre-COVID era. So that's one thing. So recovery will not be a problem because the sector is anyways operational. So in fact, that we should talk about the balance sheet, which is going to be really healthy. That's one thing. The second thing is the renewable energy. There's 2 specific things. It's not about after COVID-19. Even before COVID-19, renewable energy was given a priority, and in fact, this government talked about that. It just basically this will give a boost to that thinking, and as I said, that the new normal will have a new set of industry, new set of sectors. We're basically talking about what you call end-to-end clarity in terms of the supply, and this is energy and then oil and other input is basically one of the major ingredients in terms of the productivity, and that's going to be a sensitive subject, and the government is going to take all that with the seriousness. And I think we have a very, very bright future. We had bright future. Now this will get a more focused after COVID-19.
This is the last question of the day, Arun. This is on manufacturing sector. What do you think that the recovery rate for the manufacturing sector post-COVID, and how much time will they take?
See, I think manufacturing sector is completely locked down. So I'll tell you. So in India, unfortunately, roughly around 90% of the companies are into the unorganized sector. And now, even in the organized sectors, there's hardly 2% of the company who are basically digitally savvy or digitally inclined or have some sort of productivity from a remote or some application, the robot and stuff like that. But if you're not into the essential commodities, it's completely shut down, and that's what basically happened. But what the positive things about this, that there are various industries. There are 19 subcategories within the manufacturing. Each industry will take its own time. The part of the part of the essential commodities, if you are part of the essential commodities manufacturing unit, you will not take more than 6 months to recover and go back to the pre-COVID-19 era. But if you're part of automobile industry or auto component or automotive industry, you'll take a more than 1 year to recover, because many things will happen. Because one, your demand disruption will delay your demand for the product. Second, the supply chain disruption, while the Chinese counterpart or some other counterpart in some other countries resume the operation, the priority given to you could be different than priority given to someone else. So your supply chain will take some time to restoration. Even if you restore your supply chain, your demand destruction, let's say for example, your demand is also dependent on the truck demand or some car demand, that again depend on the other activity in the gross material product activity in the economy, income size in the economy, and things like that. In that scenario, if that is the case, then your demand will get deferred, which might go more than 1 year. So if you are part of automotive sector, it will take more than 1 year to recover. And there are host of sectors who basically from less than 6 months to the 1 year time will take basically in terms of the recovery. It is very critical to find out which sector you belongs to and what is your supply chain and what is basically your roadmap in terms of how productive in terms of even in the lower level size or from the remote size. For example, then even if you lock down with withdrawn, you will not have 100% capacity to support your manufacturing activity. You will have a 30%, 50%, 70%, and then 100% gradually. By the time you go back to 100%, it will be, let's say, maybe September, October, or maybe December time, which means you have to manage your productivity with the fewer number of labors. How the planning depend whether it's part of essential commodity, whether part of non-essential commodity, whether part of the green zone, whether part of the red zone, all will basically need to be considered to find out which sector it belongs to and how long it will take. But I've given a broad category, let's say, for a manufacturing unit into the food or food article related stuff or some other essential commodities, especially the pharmaceutical related stuff, will take less than 6 months to recover. In the other extreme, automotive industry will take more than a year to recover, and rest of the sector will fall between these two extreme, and that two extreme will depend on how you are planning your future productivity.
Thank you so much on behalf of Dun & Bradstreet, Dr. Singh. We thank you for attending the webinar today. If you have any questions, please feel free to write to us at india@dnb.com. And we would reach out to all of you shortly with the presentation and a recording of the webinar. And we'll keep you posted for our next series of webinar. Thank you so much once again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.